IVM.
This week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Storytel. Storytel is a great website for you to access ebooks and audiobooks, and for the duration of their sponsorship of our show, each week we're going to be recommending a new book to you guys to listen to. This week's recommendation is a book called Beefy's Cricket Tales by Ian Botham. Obviously, Ian Botham's nickname was Beefy, and he's done a really cool job putting together some fun stories. It's kind of a light read, easy to digest, fun stories from the world of cricket. He gets inputs and contributions from Shane Warne, David Gower, and some other folks. So it's a few years old, but some really great cricket stories that I'm sure you guys as our listeners will enjoy. The great thing about this sponsorship is if you visit storytel.com/IVM, you get a 30-day free trial on the website and app instead of a normally available 14-day free trial. So again, visit storytel.com/IVM to get 30-day free trial, and we hope you enjoy listening to or reading our recommendations. Now to this week's show. Welcome to episode 83 of the Rishabh Pant show. I'm joined by... Sorry. I get so confused. Sometimes we spend so much time talking about him. Welcome to episode 83 of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. DJ, of course, you know, from my slip up early on, we're going to spend lots of time talking about Rishabh Pant. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Pretty pleased that India's won, but sad that Rishabh Pant, who the focus of our show seems to be on most days, hadn't done that well today.
So I will do my best to try to stay a little balanced and talk about more than just Pant issues, but we will spend some time on him. We're recording this right on the tail end of when India has just defeated Bangladesh in the 3-match T20I series. We've got a great episode lined up for you today. In the first half, DJ and I are going to talk about the India-Bangladesh series and some other happenings from the world of cricket. In the second half, Varun comes in, and Varun and DJ had a really cool opportunity to interview a special guest. So I'll introduce her at the end of this first segment. But let us jump right in and start talking about cricket. So after we last spoke, India had just lost the first T20I of this 3-match series. And that was the first time, actually, India lost to Bangladesh in a T20 international. So we spent lots of time talking about that. You sensed lots of frustration in our voice. All the media coverage was India keeps doing the same thing. The playbook is an ODI playbook, etc., etc., etc. Second match rolls around. India wins the toss, chooses to chase. And it was almost as though right out of the playbook we've seen before, right? India chasing seems to be just a completely different beast than India batting first. So, DJ, anything to add on about the second match?
No, nothing really to add, man. We batted second, we smashed them. The game got over 5.5 overs early and everybody went home happy. Except for Pant again, who was tried his stumping and nearly got 2 no balls because he collected the ball in front of these stumps. I mean, what a week that guy is having, yeah.
That was pretty interesting, actually, now that you mention it. So the first stumping he got that was out-stumped on review was overturned and realized his gloves were ahead of the stumps, which is illegal for a wicketkeeper. The second one that happened, to be honest, looked very, very, very close to me. But obviously in the second instance, they actually gave it out. But I know Rohit seemed a little bit displeased with Pant. Is that a fair statement?
No, that's all because the umpire also said it was not out. The third umpire pressed the wrong button. So Rohit was absolutely livid. I don't think his irritation was directed at the wicketkeeper this time. I think it was actually directed at the third umpire, and there was some choice chutzpah hai kya Ben Stokes being said in slow motion.
Yeah, that clip has circulated most of my social media for a long time. So anyway, second match ended. India batted second, chased it down in no time. Rohit Sharma on fire, all guns blazing. He's now widening his gap like crazy for the most number of sixes hit in the last 4 or 5 years. Just unbelievable. Huge six hitter. But then what happened between the second and third match was a little interesting. 2 things I want to talk. The first is the selection. So we'll talk about the match in more detail. But India came into the third match with exactly 4 bowlers, one of who is Khalil Ahmed. And the 5th bowler was Shivam Dube, meaning the all-rounder had to bowl a full quota of 4 overs because they dropped Krunal Pandya, who'd been bowling 4 overs 3 to 4 overs in the first couple of matches, and brought in a specialist batsman in Manish Pandey. So we'll talk more about the selection. DJ, I'm trying my best to delay the amount of time we spend on Rishabh Pant, but I can't help it. It was all over the news this week. Rohit Sharma came out after the second match and said, basically, guys, leave Pant alone. Your thoughts on that one?
It's tough, man. In a country that's as cricket mad as India, it's hard not to focus on who is the sole successor to Adam Gilchrist, we thought, right? And is, of course, the real successor to MS Dhoni, India's kind of most successful wicketkeeper, batsman and captain. So he's got huge shoes to fill, this guy. And for a long time, we thought he would fill them. I mean, he started off very promising. He scored a couple of hundreds. He batted quite nicely in some T20 games. And it's just tailed away a little bit because the focus and the scrutiny is so much on this guy. And he's 21, 22. He's not someone like Tendulkar who's super mature and super put together at that age. And he was one of the best batsmen in the world already. But then he acts his age, let's say. He's 21, 22. He isn't older than his years. And I think the pressure has got to him. I mean, we call ourselves the Rishabh Pant show. We are equally guilty of this and as anyone else.
Yeah, fair enough. We most definitely are, and I shouldn't joke too much about that. I just couldn't help it when during the third T20 match, the amount of messages we were getting on Twitter, WhatsApp, all sorts of social media from all of you guys listening in, asking about Rishabh Pant. Some people saying, "Is this it? Should we not see him now till the end of the World Cup, or do we just keep persisting with him?" Some people believe we should stick with him through the end of the West Indies series. So let's finish our wrap up about the third match, DJ, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll come back and talk about kind of future prospects, because I want to go through an interesting segment with you about the lead up to the T20 World Cup. So back to the third T20, Manish Pandey comes in, no Krunal Pandya. All of us immediately thinking bizarre selection because you're forced to now bowl 4 overs of Shivam Dube. Rohit Sharma loses the toss. India gets put into bat first. So probably the first, not such a great sign. But eventually, India ended up doing okay, put up a decent total on the board. 2 pretty standout performances I want to highlight. I think the first is KL Rahul. So Rohit Sharma failed again, kind of doesn't seem to have found his footing in Shafiul Islam when he's batting first. So he got out in the second over, Shafiul Islam's first over. Pretty decent ball, but honestly just a lax shot. But so then Shikhar Dhawan kind of got off to a start again, made 19 of 16. But coming in at 1 drop in the second over, KL Rahul played a magnificent innings, 52 of 35. And then he was ably supported by Shreyas Iyer, who hit some of the cleanest, most magnificent sixes I've seen on what's a pretty big Nagpur ground. So, DJ, let's talk quickly about the batsmen. Rahul and Iyer, how good did that look today?
I mean, I think we've maintained that he is one of India's best batsmen. And I actually think, and we'll come to this later, that he's booked his flight ticket to Australia already. He's had 2 good IPLs. He's always kind of done quite well in T20 games. And Iyer, I mean, yes, he got dropped when he was on 0, an absolute sitter at point. But, oh man, he hit some really clean sixes today. And he's the captain of the Delhi Daredevils team. And I mean, it was great to see the skipper in that form, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, 5 sixes. Nobody else from the Indian side hit a 6. The entire Bangladeshi team combined hit 3 sixes. So just outstanding. It was amazing to watch him bat. So India ended at 174 for 5. Really quickly, not to spend more time on it, but Rishabh Pant failed again, made 6 of 9. Again, I've said this many times on the show before. It's not so much about the 6 of 9 or the lack of performance. It was the way he got out. I think it was a length ball, went for this ugly looking hoik over mid-wicket again. Ball stayed a little bit low and got him absolutely bowled. So nothing specific to add. The last thing before we wrap up India's batting, Manish Pandey walked in at number 6, which is an unusual slot for him. He's played majority of his career at kind of top 1 through 5, or 3, 4, 5 rather. He came in the 17th over. So with 19 balls to spare, Manish Pandey walked in. You and I were messaging each other saying this is bizarre. He's not the guy you want to walk in when there's only 19 balls left. But he actually hit 22 of 13. So thoughts on Manish Pandey? A, do you think he should have played? And B, how do you think he did?
Yeah, interesting selection. I think they were just testing him out, to be honest. I think they were testing out whether he can bat in that position. And he did his chances no harm, 22 of 13. Some cracking shots, actually. The one pull shot that he hit, I mean, it sounded really sweet. And I know you're a big fan of Manish, but I think he's done himself no harm, but it's hit and miss whether he's actually going to make that flight at the moment for me.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll talk about the T20 World Cup. But again, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to say I think he deserves to be in the playing 11. I'm a fan of him. I feel like he probably deserved a spot at some more chances in the last couple of years, but not necessarily saying he needs to be in the side right now.
But maybe in the one-day arena rather than the
correct, yeah,
T20 arena, right? Because he's done well in the one-day format, to be honest. And I don't see him being a T20 player almost.
Yeah, I mean, in another time, I could see him being a T20 number 3 or 4. But when you have Rahul, Rohit, Kohli, Iyer, and Dhawan to choose from your top four, there's nowhere. He doesn't make that cut for me. So anyway, 174. Really great start from the Indian bowlers with Deepak Chahar coming in, picking up 2 pretty quick wickets in the third over, with both Liton Das and Shami Sharkar perishing off consecutive balls. So Deepak Chahar was on a hat-trick. And then somehow from 12 for 2, these guys made, the Bangladeshi batsmen made 100 runs in the next 10 overs, got them right back on track, being 110 for 2 in the 13th over before Mohammad Mithun got out. And it was largely on the back of this one opening batsman, Mohammad Naeem, who transparently I don't know all that much about, but just looked outstanding today. I mean, he's just turned 20 years old, so he's a young guy, but outstanding knock, played really, really well against the Indian bowling lineup. And then, I mean, as we've seen before with India-Bangladesh matches, the collapse happened, right? After those 2 early wickets, Chahar ended up with figures of 6 for 7. DJ, the best T20I figures in the history of the game, beating Ajantha Mendes' figures of 6 for 8 by the 1 run. And picked up a hat-trick in the final over of the match, I guess spanning 2 of his overs. So your thoughts on the Indian bowling performance in general, and then I'll come back and ask you about Dube.
So first of all, outstanding from Chahar, right? I mean, just 6 for 7. And I remember the 6 for 8 because I think it was in the opening game of the 2012 World T20 that Mendes took all those wickets.
I have no idea, but we've established on the show that if somebody's going to remember something, it's going to be you, not me and Varun.
Yeah, so I remember that he took all those wickets in the opening game, and I had put him as my fantasy team captain, only to change it to some other idiot at the last second, just say, oh, Mendes isn't going to get wickets, and he goes 6 for 8, right? And you're just like,
always
wow.
Fun.
Yeah, so that was, which is why I remember the 6 for 8. But I mean, the 6 for 7 was just absolutely incredible. And it was after, as you said, Mohammad Naeem had done really well. He'd got 81 of 48, I think. And he'd kind of taken our trump card Chahal apart, who kind of struggled with the dew and all of that stuff. But I mean, if Chahar hadn't come back and taken all those wickets, Rohit and India were in real trouble. You could see how animated Rohit was. He was trying to egg his players on. He was upset when the ball was being overthrown. He was upset when there were misfields, the people were being slow on the field. You could kind of see how Sanju Manju was trying to say that, oh, Rohit has whipped these guys and now they're going to be better. But until all those wickets started falling in a heap, India looked in some serious trouble, and just outstanding from Chahar. And of course, we'll talk about Dube later.
Yeah, so let's get to that. I mentioned earlier that he was brought in with no real bowling backup options. I think Shreyas Iyer bowls a little bit of leg spin, but Chahal was struggling to hold a wet ball. There's no way your part-time bowler would do it. I don't think Rohit has bowled in a while, out barring those couple overs in the test matches. So Shivam Dube had to bowl. It was 110 for 3 at the end of the 13th over. And at that point, Rohit kind of had a choice to back his bigger name full-time bowlers or try to use up a smaller bowler given a wicket had just fallen. And he gave the ball to Shivam Dube, and Shivam Dube picked up a wicket on his first ball. And that too, it was Mushfiqur Rahim. I think, was that the game-changing moment, DJ?
I actually think it was the wicket just before that, to be honest, where we looked like we'd run out of ideas, right? But I mean, Mushfiqur is always a big wicket, and Dube getting that wicket, albeit with a little bit of luck, there was an inside edge and Mushfiqur kind of got played on. I think those 2 wickets, yes, together they are definitely the game changer. And the momentum swung massively in India's favour. The one thing I also wanted to point out about Chahar is that we always kind of thought of him as an opening bowler, right? We saw how Dhoni used to use him 4 overs up front, but what he showed us is that he can bowl in the middle overs and the death as well. So that was a big positive for us. And of course, Dube taking that wicket and then taking another wicket immediately after, just icing on the cake, man.
Yes.
Vijay Shankar 3.0.
Vijay Shankar 3.0. I don't know if some people are calling him Stuart Binney 2.0. I don't know exactly what role he's trying to carve out for himself, but I didn't really do much with the bat this series. And yeah, after he picked up that 1 wicket, he came on again in the 16th over, got the big man Mohammad Naeem out, and the next ball got Afif Hussain out. So ended up with figures of 3 for 30 from his 4 overs. Really strong given a weak start he had. But interesting overall, right? I'm still a little bit on the fence about him and about the role he's going to play for the side. But definitely, I think for a young guy, redemption to end up with 3 wickets.
Are you not convinced by his heavy balls?
No comment. I don't know. Who was saying? Was that Manjrekar?
Of course, Sanju Manju, who else? Who's talking to these guys about their diet? And I think Iyer was saying that milk and paneer, like Shivam Dube just puts it away. So Manju asked him then.
So that's the secret to his success.
Yeah, he asked him, "Is the secret to your success? Are milk and paneer the secret to your heavy balls?"
I have no response. I think unbelievable to think that that's appropriate. And imagine being a young guy who's just got your team back from the brink of potential defeat to Bangladesh, and this is the question you get asked while the rest of your teammates are celebrating: are dairy products the key to your success? Thank you, Manju.
Clearly, I mean, Manju's always good for a laugh, right? Anyway, carry on.
No, so I think that's basically it about the third match. I mean, outstanding. I think the last player I want to talk about really quickly is Khalil Ahmed, because he's come under some flack. He's been under pretty bad form. They chose to persist with him instead of bringing in Shardul Thakur, which I was happy about, but now I don't know how I feel about it. But anyway, he ended up doing okay, right? Didn't pick up a wicket, but 4 overs for 27 in a match where the team was chasing, so ending up with an economy at 6 to 7-5, where the team was chasing an economy of close to 9. Pretty good, right? You'd say a decent day in the field for Khalil Ahmed?
I actually don't know. You see, so the last game that was played here in Nagpur was the game that Bumrah pulled out. Bumrah and Nehra actually pulled out for India against England. And you could see that this is a ground where the spinners do struggle, have struggled in that game. And again, the fast bowlers did the job for us today. So, in a day that the fast bowlers are doing the job for you and Shivam Dube is picking up 3 for 30, is it acceptable that your frontline bowler is bowling, giving away just a few fewer runs and not picking up a wicket even? So, I'm still not convinced that Khalil is our answer, and I'm sure we'll find somebody else with a better kind of with a better record and with more potential, to be honest. I hope that person's uncovered during this IPL.
Yeah, well said. I don't know if they're going to be looking as late as the IPL, but I think what the Indian team management and Rohit have made really clear is, hey, this is experimentation. I think there are 25 plus T20 international matches between now and the next year's World Cup, and so you're going to see more and more players come in, be tried out, work through the mix, and hopefully it leaves us with a problem of plenty for Shastri and Kohli to have to figure out who finally makes gets on the plane to Australia. So
so I'm just looking at Khalil's stats actually, and he's bowled 12 dot balls in his spell, right? So the issue is that the other 12 balls in his spell were not up to the mark, to be totally honest. So he didn't give away ones, he gave away 4s. So that's what he needs to work on, the loose ball that goes for a boundary.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that makes a lot of sense. So it's a good segue for us as we think about the lead up to the 2020 World Cup. Some of you have asked us to already share our predictions for the playing 11. So when we have Varun, DJ and I all on the show, we'll do that sometime soon. I'm nervous because I'm sure I'm going to be wrong and people will remind me of it, but that's the joy of running a podcast. So what I do want to do, DJ, is as we transition to the next test matches against Bangladesh, which start in 3 days, and India plays West Indies in a few T20s, as we wrap up the Bangladesh series, what I want to do with you right now is go through all the players, so all 15 in the squad, and basically assess, did these past 3 matches in the series against Bangladesh, did it help this individual's chances to make the World Cup squad next year? Did it hurt their chances to make the World Cup squad, or no change? So again, I'm not asking you yet to just assess whether you think they'll make it or not. I'm just asking, as part of the series wrap up, did this series help them, hurt them, or create no change? Does that make sense? Are you good to do that? And then maybe when we do, I'll capture both our thinking and put it posted online.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, go for it.
All right. So let's start with our openers. Rohit Sharma, help, hurt, or no change?
I think no change is an absolute certainty, man, in the squad and the 11.
I think that's fair. I think it's not great to fail 2 out of 3 matches, but I think that's fair. So I'm not going to spend time on people where we unanimously agree. Shikhar Dhawan, this one's an interesting one. Help, hurt, or no change?
Ooh, I think again it's no change because he wasn't certain to make the squad. He had kind of one slow innings, one fast innings, and one what you would call a slow innings again. So I'm uncertain about his future.
Interesting.
So no change.
So for me, I think this is interesting, right? Shikhar on paper made 91 runs, averaged 30 runs an innings, which is exactly what you kind of expect from him. Strike rate was 107, the slowest of all the Indian batsmen except Rishabh Pant, but Rishabh Pant didn't bat all that many balls. So as I think about that, not great on paper, but then if you think about the role he played and how he anchored the first innings, the first match, and then sort of even getting 16, 20 runs in that third match helps your next few batsmen with a bit of stability. So I'm going to agree with you and say no change. I do think media has been very negative against Shikhar Dhawan. A lot of the reaction on social media and through some of the cricketing experts and former players has been he needs to go. He's not the right guy because his attitude is too much like a one day and he's going to play to run a ball. And so we talked about it on last week's show. I think he will be a hot topic for me in the coming weeks and months, but I'm going to agree with you. No change from this series. He had kind of a middling series. All right, KL Rahul for you, DJ.
I think he did his chances a world of good actually with with the last innings in particular. I think he batted particularly well. He even held the pose beautifully when he hit the ball to mid-off. So stylish batsman getting out stylishly. I mean, that's just what you get with KL, right? And I think it's more acceptable in the T20 game than the one-day game or the test game. So I'm happy with him.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think he definitely did himself a world of good. Fantastic innings and just showed what he can do. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he and Dhawan fight it out for the top spot. All right, I think this is a no-brainer, but Shreyas Iyer.
Man, he's my number 4 in one days as well after that batting effort. Fantastic. Just clean hitting beautifully. Mind not clouded over with doubt, as I'm sure we'll come to later with his other Delhi Daredevils and Delhi Capitals friends. But just beautiful hitting, just outstanding batting.
I couldn't agree more. Highest run scorer for India this series, 108 runs. Average of 54, strike rate of 183. So if you remember, we talked about adding average plus strike rate. I know it's only 3 innings, but man, your average plus strike rate is 237. Just a stunning series for him. So very, very, very happy.
That is absolutely fantastic. I didn't know that, but you could tell he's in some incredible form, and he's a fantastic fielder as well. So definitely top choice for me.
So definitely helped. So we got 2 in the help column right now. Rishabh Pant, you mentioned him really quickly. I'm assuming you're going to say hurt his chances?
I'm sad to say this as a Pant fan and someone who's often frustrated by his batting. But, well, when you say it's hurt his chances, I think we're going to have a look at someone like Sanju Samson in the wicketkeeper role soon. So we've got to do that with Pant just needing to clear his mind. And I think Varun said that as well. And it's a big thing for him to say because he's probably the biggest fan of Rishabh Pant on this podcast. He said Pant needs to spend some time outside the national side. So hopefully I'm not putting words in his mouth here, but yeah.
I think I have proof of it in writing. He sent it in a message. So if he disputes it, we can find some proof and you're a lawyer, you can defend it. But yeah, I think just assessing from the point of view of prior to this 3-match series versus at the end of this 3-match series, I mean, to end up with a very, very middling series with the gloves, to be honest. And he had a couple of run-out chances he missed. Horrendous DRS sort of capability showing he just didn't know what to do.
Oh, yeah, we forgot about that. Even today, just like, what?
And then 3 innings, 33 runs, striking at 94.2. It just not there for me. So I'm going to say Rishabh Pant hurt his chances. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him play against the West Indies.
Oh, wow. Plus the no ball, giving away the no ball with the stumping. So losing a wicket and giving away a free hit, man. Poor guy. He's had a bad week.
He just has. And
I hope he bounces back.
Yeah, me too. And he's always been good at the IPL historically. So I hope he gets some time to just regroup, get his head in the right space and then come back. So, all right, Shivam Dube. Kind of before today, I may have said he hurt his chances, didn't really show up as impactful, but he redeemed himself a little with the ball today. What are your thoughts? Did Shivam help or hurt his chances or no change?
So, well, I think it's probably no change because Pandya will remain our number 1 all-rounder and seam bowling all-rounder. But what Dube hasn't shown us is what he's capable with the bat, right? So we don't know what he can do with the bat. We saw him kind of get 9 of 8 today and he got out early in the first game. So until he shows us what he can do with the bat, I'd say no change. And that basically means he's in queue behind Hardik Pandya as a seam bowling all-round.
Interesting. You know, I might just jump in and say I think he actually helped his chances. And the big reason being nobody's seen him on this stage before. It was just kind of showing up and this was an opportunity to say, does he belong? Like, can he be that backup all-rounder? And I think he raised his hand and says, I can be. I think he needs to prove himself with the bat, obviously. But in a big game situation like this third match, now, lots of things went his way, but I do think he probably did himself a world of good by at least saying, hey, I can compete at this level. You guys need to give me more time. Anyway, so that brings us to the core kind of batsman. Let me wrap up the batting and all-rounders really quickly. So Manish Pandey, help, hurt, or no change for you, DJ?
I think help. He's no harm to his chances. Played one game, played a nice little cameo, helped his chances.
Agree. I don't think his chances are high to begin with, but I don't think he did them any harm either. And then lastly, the second Pandya brother is Krunal Pandya. Had a sort of middling series. If I just run through his stats really quickly, he batted once, made 15 not out of, I think it was 8 balls. So not great, but not bad. Didn't bat in the second game and got left out for the third, but not great with the ball, right? He bowled in both innings. He bowled 6 overs combined, gave 49 runs at an economy rate of 8, but picked up 0 wickets. So not great. I mean, if you're going to give more than 8 runs an over, you have to be a wicket-taking bowler, especially while Sundar and Dube, Chahar all gave less runs than him per over. So your thoughts on Krunal?
I actually think it's a no change again. And it's because I think genuinely Jadeja is ahead of him in the queue as well. So he probably hurt his chances, but his status overall hasn't changed as standing behind Jadeja in the queue as our number one left-arm spinning all-rounder.
So I'm going to put Krunal down as hurt his chances because I think you're kind of saying it wasn't great. It's low to begin with, but didn't really help, right?
Yeah, I think he could have helped his chances, which he didn't do. So he's hurt his chances.
He's hurt. Okay, awesome. So before we get to the bowlers, let me just go through the 3 guys who didn't play. We had Rahul, Chahar, Shardul Thakur, and Samson. Do you think being on the bench but not in the squad did any impact to their chances for the T20 World Cup next year? Or just should I put them all down as no change?
I think we just spoke about it, man. Like Samson, God. Samson, I think his chances have actually improved of playing in the next game. So being on the bench, ironically, has improved his chances of playing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's well said. Anything? Do you agree with that on Shardul or the other Chahar brother? Or cousin, rather?
I don't think so, because I think Chahal's got that leg spinner spot sewn up at the moment. And Shardul Thakur, I mean, whether Khalil plays or Shardul plays, are they really good choices? I don't know. It's like devil in deep blue sea, man.
Well said. Fair enough. Okay, so let's get to the bowlers. Let's start with Washington Sundar. He sort of bowled very economically. So he ended up bowling 3 matches in 12 overs. He just picked up the 1 wicket, but went for 84. So 7 runs and over. Kind of played the role Rohit needed him to. And then he didn't get to bat much, but the one time he did bat, he made 14 off 5 balls and showed he can hit the big sixes. So thoughts on Sundar for you?
I actually think he's improved his chances greatly. I think he bowled very economically. He's a good fielder. We saw that catch that he took today for the first wicket, did the splits as well. So, good fielder and good batsman. I mean, he's an underrated batsman. We saw him hit in the first inning, in the first game, in the first innings. And yeah, I think he's done his chances no harm at all. He's certainly improved them from my perspective.
Yeah, I think well said. Nothing to add from me. Looked pretty solid. Probably not a top pick, but definitely helped his case. Yuzvendra Chahal. I mean, for me, he's probably one of the guarantees to be on that plane. But so he had a great series. I don't know if I'm going to mark him as helped, but I'll say no change because I think he'll be there. What do you think?
Yeah, same. Chelly is just class, and he'll do well in Australia if he does play. The only thing that counts against him always is his ridiculous batting record. So
yeah, fair enough.
Until he scores some runs with the bat, I don't think his chances will change, but he's already in the squad for me.
So I'm going to mark him as no change. That's fair. Last 2, Khalil Ahmed. So we kind of talked about him. What do you think? I don't know how to assess this one.
See, I'm not a big fan of Khalil, man. I don't think he has the variety. The only thing he adds is left arm angle. He just adds a different angle. And how much are Shastri, Kohli and Rohit, who I think are the leadership group, how much are they going to bank on that? Just a change in angle. Is there no better left-arm seamer in all of India? And I don't know the answer to that, but there must be.
Did they pick up the phone and call to Nutcut?
Oh, wow. So that's the other guy. It's tough, man.
Anyway, I'm gonna assess him as I've heard his chances. Like if you go through the numbers really quick to bowl, what did he bowl? He bowled 3 matches. He bowled 12 overs, 2 for 108. So gave 9 runs and over. I was complaining about Krunal's economy rate. He was even worse than Krunal and just picked up the 2 wickets across all 3 matches and bowled his full quota.
Yeah, and he's a poor fielder as well. So I don't see him fitting into the mold of this Indian team and what they want to be in Australia, right? They want to be a fit, fast, good out cricket team, and Khalil just doesn't fit into that. And I don't know. I'm not happy with him. I think he's hurt his chances. Yeah, you're right.
I couldn't agree more. All right, and to wrap this up, Deepak Chahar, I think no-brainer, helped his chances. I mean, he may have booked a seat on that plane by bowling 6 for 7, right?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering whether we're going to take Bhuvi now to Australia. I mean, Chahar can bat as well, remember? I think he was promoted up the order once by MS Dhoni along with Harbhajan and smashed like 40 odd in no time. And interesting times ahead for Chahar because best figures in T20 internationals. Can you drop this guy in a game you were about to lose?
Yeah, I don't think you drop him.
Unbelievable.
For the next little bit, but he needs to keep that level up to really compete. And hey, I can see a world where Bumrah and Chahar look solid together opening the bowling. So, all right, so that wraps that up, guys. I'm going to capture this on a little image and post it on our social media just to who we think helped, hurt, or didn't change their chances. Thanks for that, DJ. That brings us to the end of our wrap-up on the India-Bangladesh series. As I go through kind of what else happened in the world of cricket, a couple of highlights. Officially now, Ravi Ashwin has joined the Delhi Capitals. DJ, any comment on that? Are you feeling good about it?
No, it's great. And the special guest that we speak to later was actually involved in all of that stuff. So guys, stay tuned for the second half. It's really good. But really happy for Ashwin to have actually come over to the Delhi Capitals. I think he'll bring a lot of tactical ideas, and he's a clever guy, man. He's a thinking cricketer, and he's one of the world's most successful T20 cricketers as well. So really happy that we've got Ashwin, and I think the Delhi pitch will certainly help him ply his straight as well. So all round great buy from the Delhi Daredevils, Delhi Capitals.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. And then lastly, really quickly, I mean, you live in England, so time zones aren't great, but England versus New Zealand, 5-match T20 series. It was tied at 2-2. The fifth match, they needed 5 runs to win. England was batting. Chris Jordan on strike. Needed 5 runs to win from the last ball. He hits it for 4. For the second time this summer, we have an England versus New Zealand super over, albeit in a different format. This time around, instead of making 15 like they did in the World Cup, England went out to bat first, made 17. And then without needing boundary count, etc., I think more due to a misstep from the New Zealand tacticians by sending out Peter Seifert up front instead of having Guptill faced, New Zealand fell short. England took the series 3-2. But outstanding. DJ, what are the odds that England-New Zealand would have played another exciting super over in the 5th match of a T20 series after the World Cup drama we just saw?
Yeah, pretty low, right? And I think there was some pretty funny pictures doing the rounds on social media with kind of kids being given these props which said it's a tie, which is actually a tie. So that was quite funny. But do you know what the boundary count was for the innings?
New Zealand was ahead. They were ahead by 1.
Yeah. That's the best part.
Which is amazing. It's so poetic, right? That they've managed to tie. I think that rule is gone, but it would have been fun.
In knockouts of ICC tournaments, it's gone there, right?
Just unbelievable.
So what would have happened if they had tied it here? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure they changed the rule, right? So I'm pretty sure if they tied the super over, they would have just played another super over. So that's the new rule.
Yeah, but wasn't that just in ICC tournaments?
Oh, is that what you're saying? I'm not sure about that. We should do some digging. If any of our listeners know, send us a message or a tweet. We'll do some digging in parallel. But yeah, it would have been interesting. I think we're all better for having seen a match which did not go to another tied super over, because I don't think that would have been good for Ian Smith's heart, even in sitting in the commentary box. He was really struggling.
I don't think so. And whoever writes back to us with the answer to that question, you know what we're going to write back to them, right, Ashwin?
What?
It's going to be thanks, Bhavesh.
Thanks, Bhavesh. What a line. That is an amazing line from this week's. Do you want to give our listeners a rundown on what that means really quickly?
Yeah, just to put that into context. I mean, I think we've been overusing it on our WhatsApp group, to be honest. And Ashwin, I think you're probably the most guilty of it. So I think we should...
I'm quite okay with that.
Are you quite okay with that? Anyway, so the context for our listeners who haven't been following what Virat Kohli's been up to. Virat Kohli's birthday was last week. I think it was the 3rd of November, right? Or the 5th of November. And lots of players wished him and said happy birthday and this and that. And Suresh Raina was one of them. And Suresh Raina wishes Virat Kohli happy birthday, and Virat Kohli replies saying, thanks, Bhavesh. And Ashwin, you screenshotted it to us and sent it to us, and you're like, what does this even mean? So I was initially like, maybe Suresh Raina is really emotional and stuff, and he's like, Bhavna wala Suresh, so he becomes Bhavesh. Then there were all these theories going around Twitter that Suresh Raina's nephew, who apparently had tweeted about Pakistan when they were knocked out of the World T20. His name was Bhavesh, so Kohli was making a dig at that and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think thanks Bhavesh could well just be a typo, while Kohli was typing it out on his phone in Bhutan or wherever he is, and it just auto-corrected Suresh to Bhavesh. But I think that story is not going to die down anytime soon because it's just amazing. And Kohli has not tweeted a clarification as yet, so he's just letting people go wild with their speculation. So
I think that's the best part. I think in the week that "Okay Boomer" as an expression kind of took the internet and the world by storm, I think in the cricket world, thanks Bhavesh is going to be the next new thing. So expect to see us spending lots of time responding to you guys saying thanks Bhavesh on social media. Anyway.
Yeah, also, sorry, one more thanks, Bhavesh, actually, to Clive, who actually tweeted in the article of the week, which is India seemed to organize to break bubbles or create chaos in T20I. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Go and read that, guys. It's really quite an interesting article. So thanks, Bhavesh, to Clive.
Well said. And on that happy note, that brings us to the end of the first part of this show. As we mentioned, we have a great interview lined up in the second half. It's perfect timing because as the Indian women continue to beat the West Indies women in a very one-sided series, on the same day that a 15-year-old Shefali Verma hit a magnificent half century, 73 of just 49 balls against the West Indies women, we have a fantastic interview lined up with Suprita Das talking about her book that talks about the women's game of cricket. She's also affiliated with the Delhi Capitals, so there's some great chat about the Delhi Capitals. So stay tuned. We will be right back after this break, and you'll hear our interview with Suprita.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also like to thank Intel and Storytel for supporting us this month. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by print and TV journalist and founder of fact-checking platform Boom, Govind Ethiraj. He talks to Cyrus about the importance of fact-checking in today's scenario, the birth of the India Fact Check quiz, and poses some sample questions to Cyrus himself. The Filter Coffee podcast is back with freshly brewed episodes. This week, Karthik talks to Senior VP of Marketing, Digital and Communications at Penguin Random House India, Neeti Kumar. Neeti explains Penguin's unique editorial system, the challenges faced by publishers regarding piracy, and her take on the digital revolution. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh are back to share their love for the true crime stories. This week, they talk about the hit Netflix show Mindhunter. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by the CEO of Scoop Whoop, Satvik Mishra. They talk about how Satvik became an accidental entrepreneur. On Simplified, Chuck and Naren simplify conglomerates like Luxottica, Unilever, and even IVM Podcast. Yeah, we're a conglomerate. We're a big, big conglomerate. This week on Know Your Kanun, Amber is joined by Pawan Kakade, partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers. They talk about the taxation system in India and topics around economy, startups, compliance regimes, and even more. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome back from that break. And guys, this week we've got Suprita Das with us, who is a journalist, and she's written a few books and she works with the IPL. So Suprita, thank you so much for joining us on the Iyer and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So, Suprita, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a journalist. You've written a couple of books. How did you get into journalism? And of course, it's something that is very interesting for us, having run a blog and now we run a podcast. So how did you fall into journalism?
So to be honest, journalism happened, sports journalism to be specific, happened slightly accidentally. I finished my journalism course at the Asian College of Journalism in Chennai, and then I was actually interning. I managed to bag an internship with NDTV, and at that time, basically, there was no opening, and I was sort of doing a bit of a hop, skip, jump from sort of one department to another, 2 days, on this beat, 2 days on another, and that wasn't really allowing me to learn anything in detail. And I think the sort of the turning point in some sense was this one time when I was working on a lifestyle program where I was researching about scented candles. And I was really angry with myself, saying, I did not go to journalism school for this. But it's just that around that time, a lot of sports was happening. And I just requested my trainer if I could complete the rest of my internship with the sports desk. At that time in NDTV, I said, listen, I'm interested in sport. The fact is that I've never played any active level of sport. Absolutely rubbish level, to be honest. But I used to watch a lot of sport, courtesy my dad, who used to be an avid sports fan. and read a lot about it, follow it in the paper. So that's how I would always sort of keep myself updated. So I requested my trainer, and she said, sure, maybe you could do the rest of your internship with the sports desk. And whatever was left of my internship, and then a few more days, I did work very hard at that time. There was some football going on. The Indian cricket team was touring the West Indies. The French Open, the tennis was going on. So learned a lot. Did, I think, a couple of things all right, which resulted in the internship converting into a job. One that I did for 10 years, actually. Yeah, so that was the start. I am not an active journalist at the moment. I worked in television with NDTV for a decade, following which I was working as a freelancer for about a year or so. During that time, I was doing a few television stints and writing for a whole bunch of magazines and websites on sport in general. And my stint with the IPL is, I'm still in my first year. I work with the Delhi franchise, Delhi Capitals, as their media manager, and I also look at content for social media and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's absolutely amazing, and it's very interesting that we have scented candles to thank for this. But Suprita, tell us a little bit about your books. I know you've written a couple of books, but the one I want to focus on is called Free Hit: The Story of Women's Cricket in India. Now, the first question on that is, what prompted you to write about women's cricket in India?
Yeah.
And then how did you go about doing that? How did you research the book, and who did you speak to while researching the book?
So I had already written my book on Sarita Devi, the Indian boxer, her biography a year earlier, and it had released right after the Rio Olympics in 2016. And I remember in 2017 when the World Cup, the 50 over World Cup, was underway in England. I was at my desk at work, I remember, and I was writing the match report for the India versus Australia game, the one in the league stages. And that's the match in which Mithali had gone past Charlotte Edwards for the record for most runs in ODI cricket. And I was just sitting.
Oh, so this is not the Harmanpreet game. This is the group stage.
Okay. Yeah, that was the semi-final. This is the group stage, the one we lost actually. But that's the one in which Mithali went past Charlotte Edwards. And I was writing the match report for that game, and it just dawned upon me that here we have Mithali. She scored more runs in ODI cricket more than anybody else in the world. We've got Jhulan, who's taken more wickets than anybody else in the world, and these two girls are from our country. And how come we don't talk about them or celebrate them and their achievements, as much as we celebrate the men? Why are they not talked about? Why don't we, for example, as a television network or any other news network, do special programming or special features around them, and what they have achieved has been with not much of a backing and with very little of an ecosystem, really. So that was sort of the first thing that clicked in my head. And I went back to my publishers, the same ones who had published my first book, which was HarperCollins India. And they'd been pushing me for a while to come up with, new ideas for a second book. And I wasn't really paying much attention up until this point. And I said, hey, you know what? I think it would be a great idea if we could tell the story of women's cricket in India through the eyes of these two stalwarts, these two legends that we have, Mithali and Jhulan. That was sort of the rudimentary idea, the skeletal plan that I had in my head. To which they said that, you know what, why just Mithali and Jhulan? What about the times and the players before Mithali and Jhulan? Do we really have, an extensive idea of how the women's game even started in India? So why don't we sort of try telling the story of the women's game in India, how it started, where it stands today, and basically the history of the game, which sort of made the job way tougher, and it made you feel a lot more responsible because you're trying to narrate the history of a game, which sort of started officially, in some sense, from the 1970s, and the idea was to bring up all the important highlights, everything important that had happened, the ups and downs, and bring it sort of, up to speed with the current time as much as possible. So that was the idea. I mean, I had gone with a very rudimentary idea, but the brief I got back from the publishers is that it has to be a lot more fleshed out sort of a book, which in a way can be sort of like a go-to book if anyone would want to know how women's cricket in India really started and grew. So I had my task cut out, and I came back and I realized that I had a daunting task really ahead of me, because up until that point, so I had, and I have covered very little cricket as a journalist. I was covering Olympic sports more extensively, so the tennis, the badminton, boxing, wrestling, all of that, and very little of cricket, because there was always a dedicated, in news there's always this segregation of the cricket reporters and the other sports reporters, and I was in the latter category. Yeah, I mean, when I started working, there was a dedicated set of cricket reporters. They used to go to South Africa and England and everywhere that the Indian team was traveling, and I was told, you know what, why don't you just go out and check out the boxing, see what's happening in the Indian Olympic Association, that sort of stuff. But I was really lucky that at that time actually Indian sports was picking up. I started working in around 2007, and then in 2008 India had won 3 Olympic medals in Beijing, which sort of was the turning point, and suddenly things started becoming important. Sania started winning slams, Saina became a household name. So I worked and developed my contacts and did my stories and interviews at a time when other sports in India was really growing. So I'm really, really grateful and thankful for that. But cricket and writing a book on cricket, that was something that was totally out of my comfort zone. But I realized that there were very few people in India who were covering the women's game, in a dedicated way. So let's say I wanted to start out by first gathering a bunch of contacts. That was difficult in the first place, because a lot of people didn't even have the contact numbers for a lot of people. So I had to make several phone calls to actually build a database for myself. And then sort of the work started on the book. And the first thing is that there is really no archival system as such in Indian cricket. So you don't have really any starting point. You have to figure out a starting point yourself. But you still need to form some sort of structure following which you sort of gather all your material, line up all your interviews and all of that. And the thing is, when you're writing something like this, or even for my first book, actually, Shadow Fighter, there is no way in hell that you're going to be able to collect your material according to, the way you may have planned the chapters in your book. So, for example, if you're tracing the history of a sport, like I did, one that started around the 1970s, the people who were a part, or the characters who were a part of the story at that time, in that decade, for example, maybe I couldn't start my research with them. I probably had easier access to the girls who play today. So I probably managed to gather material for chapters 7, 8, 9, 10 without having gathered anything for the chapters before that. And then you sort of start putting things into place. So it's very challenging that way, because it kind of puts you, in a situation where you're constantly trying to remember where you finished and where you have to pick up from. So there were days, for example, in the morning I may have interviewed somebody who is a modern day cricketer, a current player, and then in the evening you're talking to somebody who played in the 1980s. So you're constantly, oscillating between that past and present, which is challenging, but it's fun too. But the fact is that there's no database as such. So 90% of what is in Free Hit is based on my primary research. It's all based on primary interviews conducted by me. And then, of course, there's some news articles to go back to. The Hindu was, and still is, in fact, quite dedicated about covering the women's game. So I reached out to the Hindu archives and spoke to a couple of people there. The other important thing is there's no way of confirming performances. For example, like, let's say I'm speaking with someone who used to play cricket in India and is now, in her 50s or 60s, and cannot recollect whether in a particular match she had taken 3 wickets or 4 wickets. So you don't get an exact figure, but you still need to put an exact figure, because you're writing a book on the history of a game, so your facts better be correct. So then I was in a situation where I'd try and confirm those figures and results with officials from the corresponding board. So if India had played, for example, a series with New Zealand, and there is nothing I was going to get from the BCCI or our players because they could not recollect, I had to get in touch with the New Zealand Cricket Board, who, by the way, manages their archives really well, as does the Australians, to say that, I am working on this and I would like to cross-check the scores. So I need access to scorecards from so-and-so series, and they'd help me out. So yeah, that was that. And one part of it is really the research, which is endless because you can go on and on and on because you're not talking only to players. You're talking to family, you're talking to coaches, and you're really talking to everyone who's a part of the ecosystem. So as and when the sport is progressing and you're in sort of the 90s and then in the 2000s, you're talking to people like sponsors, broadcasters, and other people who are part of the sporting ecosystem. That's one part of it, the research, which is really endless. You don't know where to put a stop to it. And the other part of it is, of course, putting the whole thing together. So one fine day, I suddenly realized that I'm sitting on this mountain of material, but I need to start writing it. So at some point, you just got to start putting together, and slowly but steadily, they sort of start falling in place. So that was the journey. Yeah, I could go on, but that's how it was.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely incredible. In fact, it almost sounds like you could teach a course or almost write another book about how this book was written. Because, I mean, I find it personally, frankly, I find it amazing that a country like India hasn't got records for cricket from the 1980s and stuff. And of course, the Australians and the New Zealanders are far ahead of us because I think the New Zealand Cricket Board is chaired by a woman and it's headed by a woman as well. And the WBBL is one of the kind of premier women's cricket competitions in the world, whereas we're kind of lagging behind in that sense. So, Suprita, I actually wanted to ask you a little bit more about the challenges that are faced by women's cricketers in India. And around the world, actually, because I think your book covers kind of gender pay gap, sponsorship challenges, indifference from officials. But the one point that's come up recently, actually, in the context of the US football team, the US women's football team, who's just been granted class action status about an equal pay dispute with their federation. Do you see female cricketers eventually being paid the same as male cricketers, not only in India, but across the world? Of course, tennis has got equal prize money. The women in America are fighting for the same, and hopefully they will get it. But what are the challenges that will be faced by the women in actually getting to that equal pay for cricket?
Yeah. So I honestly think it's a long shot at the moment, and I can speak with specifics to India. In any case, as far as cricket and really any other sport is concerned, a country like Australia and even New Zealand, they're right up there in treating their women and men athletes, at par, whether it's number of tournaments, whether it's pay. So they're right up there, and for that to happen for India, I think it's going to take a lot of time. The fact is that the contracts, the contracts came in a couple of years ago, and the difference in pay is a lot, and the BCCI, which up until now was really entangled in the legal mess, which it is now free from, thankfully at the moment, about how they came in for a lot of criticism about how seniors like Mitali, Jhulan, Smriti, Harman, how they are still now getting paid lesser than the lowest grade male cricketer, and how that is absolutely unfair. The hike that happened at that point, it was earlier about 15 lakhs annually, if I'm not mistaken, for this sort of tier 1 class of women players, and that got hiked to about 50 lakhs. So that's a 35 lakh hike, which is not bad, to be honest, given that their pay structure was really warped. It is still warped, and if you sort of compare the pay gap, I mean what the men earn and the women, it is laughable. But I think there is a long really long distance to cover. The fact is that this is a marathon; it's not a sprint, and you cannot expect.
And what is the argument? Is it just perception that there's no interest in the women's game? Because that isn't true. Because there's plenty of interest in the women's game.
No, that's not true at all. I think the appetite for the women's game is a lot at the moment, but I think they also look about they look at the commercial angle. You have to see whether you're being able to sell women's cricket at all, and that's one of the major things to be considered when you are trying to improve the game. That's exactly what I mean when I say this is not a sprint; it is a marathon. All of those who are stakeholders of the sport need to have their faith, need to have their belief in the women's game. There is no doubt, like I said, that there is appetite for the women's game. For example, the final of the 2017 World Cup, which was really a turning point when India lost to England, that final by 9 runs. So the first match that they played after that World Cup, which had sort of brought them into so much of limelight, was when they were playing a series in South Africa. And the very first match, there was enough interest. There was enough interest in these girls and, how they play. People wanted to know and watch them. And the first match that they were playing, which was against South Africa in South Africa, was not telecast. Because, the host nation, the onus is on the host nation to work out the logistics of the telecast. But Cricket South Africa did not think it was commercially viable enough. But BCCI, being as powerful as it is, also did not step in to do anything about it. Maybe, work out a plan in which perhaps costs could be split so that, people could watch their team in action. So the point is that you need to keep the faith and you need to keep the belief. There has to be live streaming for all matches. There has to be more consistent coverage of women's cricket, which a lot of it is being done online thanks to social media. Because even if, let's say, you cannot watch a match on Star Sports, somebody or the other is working out a video link somewhere in the world by means of which a live streaming is happening and people are talking about it. So even if, let's say, the Indian women are playing West Indies at the moment and a lot of people cannot catch it because the timings are a little tricky, there are people still who are waking up in the morning to catch up, on what happened. So I woke up this morning to find out that Shefali played an amazing knock yesterday, in the T20 against West Indies. I did not watch it, but I have the update now. I have the access now. But it all boils down to really sort of strengthening your domestic cricket structure more importantly than anything else. The fact is that, like I said, there was about a 35 lakh hike in the payment of the women cricketers for the top ranked cricketers from 15 to 35. That's great. And I think there is a lot of attention. Of course, more can be done, but there is a lot of attention on the Indian team as such at the moment. But that's only about 15 of them. There are many other girls who play cricket in the country. And it's the grassroots, it's the girls who are playing domestic cricket who need all that care, who need all that attention, which is why when Saurav Ganguly took charge as BCCI president, and the first thing he said was, I want to be able to take care of India's first-class cricketers. It made me feel very hopeful. And I'm sure anybody who is interested in the women's game and care for it and is involved in sort of any capacity would have also felt very hopeful about it, because that's where the work needs to be done. It has to start from the bottom, and then you sort of work your way towards the top. You got to have a robust system. You got to have a calendar that is much more calibrated. You got to let them play more matches than what they currently do. To build a stronger base, to do things like have a full-fledged IPL, and then talk about bridging the wage gap and stuff like that. Those are larger issues, but I personally believe that the work needs to be done at the bottom at the moment rather than the top.
Thanks, Suprita. I think that's very interesting. Like you said, it's a marathon. It could take time, and hopefully the current generation of women cricketers can help inspire others and make that change. And Suprita, we wanted to also talk to you. We're very excited to know about your current role with the Delhi Capitals. So on this podcast, you've got 3 big Delhi Capitals fans. For the last 11 years, we've been supporting them through everything, including name changes.
Right.
And actually, actually the job you hold is like pretty much our dream job. So tell us a little bit about what is it like to be the media manager for Delhi Capitals, and what does your work really involve with them?
Yeah, so it's in some sense a career switch for me, because I used to be on one side of the fence and I'm not now on the other. It's an interesting position to be in, because I mean, my designation is that of media manager, of course, like you mentioned, and that essentially means managing press for all the players and the management, for the franchise. But that means I'm yet to complete an entire season, of course. So I think I'll sort of one season and one full off season will give me an idea of what an entire season really, entire year, an entire circle really is like, for a franchise. But the IPL is a platform like no other. That's for sure. Of course, I'm busier during season because everybody wants an exclusive and everybody wants access to players. It's not possible to keep everybody happy. And I think towards the end of the season, I sort of was starting to say how, starting to learn how to say no to people, because you cannot keep everybody happy, and everyone's not available all the time. But a lot of our work also is keeping the franchise alive and kicking during off season. So through social media and through offline activities as well. So through social media, we try and keep regular updates of all our players and management throughout the year. For that, we make sure that we keep a very close eye on domestic tournaments, not just for India players. So players from DC who are, let's say, participating in the Caribbean Premier League or playing in the Big Bash. Someone like a Sandeep Lamijani, he's the busiest cricketer in the world. He plays leagues all around the world. So we keep a track of where Sandy is playing, where everyone else is playing, and even our domestic players. So whether it's Dilip Trophy, whether it's Vijay Hazare. So we constantly try to highlight sort of their performances as well. I also have tried and made an effort to make sure that all the players, especially the ones who currently do not play for India, also get their due coverage. So someone like a Chalat Saxena, for example, who is like a giant in domestic cricket and has done so well. Try and get some press done for someone like Jalaj, someone like Hanuma, and stuff like that. As far as the international cricketers are concerned, we don't really have that much access. That apart, the other part of my job is to sort of try and ensure that the brand, the DC brand, which finally can claim, some success after having finished third in the last season and just hoping to do better in the upcoming season, that we are remembered by the fans, because fans of Delhi, I don't know about y'all, even though y'all say that y'all are Delhi fans, but people in Delhi did not have a lot of memory, or recall value really about their own team, about what was Delhi Daredevils, simply because the team really did not have performances to back them up. Which is why when DC finished third in 2019, it was amazing for the fans. So it was great. Like when we played our last match at Kotla, which was against Rajasthan Royals, it was fantastic. I mean, we made the players take like a victory lap, and everyone was so happy. That was brilliant, and I think that was really a happy situation for the players as well, because they constantly used to keep telling us, whenever we step into the Kotla to play, we always feel like we're not the home team. The support is always for the opposition, which is really sad. I mean, it's different when it's CSK. The point is that wherever CSK plays, everyone's rooting for CSK. Everyone's rooting for MS Dhoni. But this time around, I think finally when they were playing MI or playing, RCB at home, the support was for them. You could see a lot of fans turn up with blue flags and blue jerseys, which was so heartening to see. So off season also we sort of try and keep the brand alive, apart from whatever we do online that I already mentioned. Offline, we try and keep ourselves connected, with the people of the city, because that's what the franchise wants to do, by being a part and partnering in events which are important in Delhi. For example, we were a part of the IIT Fest, so that helped us reach out to a lot of young people in the city. We were one of the partners at the half marathon, which is one of the biggest events in Delhi's calendar. So that was pretty good. But now's the time when we start getting busy with, the trading window closes, of course, in a few days, and the auctions are next month. So this is the time when we get busy with all the activity. Yeah, so busy times coming up.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. And actually, yeah, I mean, I can imagine a lot of people don't recall the brand that well, probably, but the three of us on this podcast definitely do. We remember every memory.
Right.
And it hasn't been great, but last year was I believe it's the tipping point for the Delhi Capitals, and hopefully we just do better moving on from here.
Thank you for being DC fans.
Always. And Suprita, tell me, have you I mean, it's been a short time for you so far, but any controversies have come up? Any, just any interesting stories to share? We don't want to put you on the spot too much, but I can imagine with something like the IPL, there's controversy happening almost every day of those 6 weeks. Does it get very hectic?
It does. So it's really amazing for me because it sort of gives me, firstly, when you are part of a team, and this is something that I should probably highlight, is that the kind of trust that the trust and the bond that you develop with everybody who's working in the franchise is quite amazing. The players, for example, if I would have still been a journalist working in, a fixed organization or maybe working independently, the kind of relationship that they would have shared with me would have been different from what they do or did when they knew that I was a part of their team. So the level of communication and trust is much more, which is great. But cricket's a whole different world, really, from anything else. Like I mentioned, my USP when I was a journalist was other sports, and there's very limited cricket that I had covered. But you see now why there is a distinction, because everything is so large scale, and IPL is a great place to work in, and an interesting place really to work in. Controversies, of course, are not very far away, but I mean, it really keeps journalists busy. For example, apart from all of them, of course, wanting exclusive interviews all the time, I think the times that they were really, really sort of bothering and were hoping to get information out of me was the time when Kagiso Rabada had to go back to South Africa because Cricket South Africa wanted him back and in shape for the World Cup. And everybody was, I remember my flight was switched off because my phone, was switched off. I was on a flight. I would get off the flight and turn my phone on to see 50 plus missed calls, all from journalists, and all questions were about Rabada. And I'm like, okay, there are other things happening in the world, but really everybody wants to know whether KG is still playing the rest of the games or not. And So that sort of stuff. So that
I was saying we were frantically Googling that, which day he's going back, what time flight he might be on. So we were frantically Googling that.
Yeah, he was as cool as a cucumber. He's an amazing character. He had and a fantastic cricketer really, and we were all very sad that he had to go. And he was like, "This is a difficult choice for me, but Cricket South Africa has decided this for me. So sorry guys to leave you midway, but I'll just have to." So that was the time. The last week was actually quite hectic because everybody had decided, in any case, that our Ashwin was going to join DC. So everybody wanted confirmation from me, and we tried to remain as tight-lipped as possible. But then journalists, I was also a journalist, so I know that journalists are doing their job. So it's not that, they're gonna get their news from one source. So that was also that kept me quite busy. Like whether this is happening, whether this is not happening, the journalists are calling. Does something need to be told to them, or should we just wait till everything is done for full and finals? That was quite busy, and it's going to get busier. But no controversies as such, given that the IPL has seen so many big controversies as such. But again, cricket and controversies, you can't keep them very far from each other, can you? So yeah, let's see what lies ahead.
Yeah, and now that Ashwin's at DC, we're hoping for our first title and no more controversies. But Suprita, I have another question for you, and it's something that, again, us as Daredevils fans and then Delhi Capitals fans have something very close to our heart. Mm-hmm. When is a Cricket Fever type documentary coming out with the Delhi Daredevils team? Because we absolutely love that documentary, and it seems like such a great way of getting kind of fans engaged with it. Even I'm not a Mumbai Indians fan, so to speak. I've even gone to watch a Delhi Daredevils match in the Wankhede and nearly been hounded out of that place. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think would, I mean, we are super fans anyway.
Yeah.
But it would bring the normal fans closer. Obviously, there's a budget and all of that involved. But are there plans for a Cricket Fever type Delhi Daredevils, Delhi Capitals documentary coming out?
I really cannot comment on because nothing has been decided as such. But there's plenty of filming that goes on anyway during season and even during off season, but more during season really. And the idea is to sort of capture the journey and capture the players in a way that that fans have not seen before. So what are bus journeys like? What are flights like? Who's the naughty one in the team, and who's the nice boy, and stuff like that. So there's plenty of filming that we do, that we have done already with the teams through the season. So as and when if there's something that if any of that can be converted or will be converted on screen, you will get to know. Yeah, fingers crossed.
That sounds absolutely amazing. We can't wait. And we are already excited for next year's IPL with the move of Ashwin from Kings 11 to our team. And Suprita, it's been amazing speaking to you. Thank you for all the insight into the women's game as well as the IPL. Is there anything you'd like to tell our listeners, perhaps where they can find your books? Because there's more than one of them.
Well, they're both available online, actually. My first book is Shadow Fighter, biography of Sarita Devi. It's an amazing book, whether you follow women's boxing or not. Why I call it as amazing is because it's a great story on Indian sport. That's one. That's available on Amazon too. And of course, the more recent one, Free Hit. Free Hit is almost going to be a year old now. It was released around December last year. So that's available. Free Hit, the story of women's cricket in India. That is available online. There are Kindle versions also available. So you can get your copies. Feel free to pick up whichever. But the funny thing is, like I was discussing with my publishers, is what my experience or my realization rather after having written both these books, and complete coincidence that the subject of both my books, in one case, of course, it's an individual athlete, and another one it is a team, is that the theme really is of so near yet so far. So Sarita Devi as a boxer, having been around at the same time of MC Mary Kom, and yet have not won or achieved as much as Mary has. Given it's amazing how their journeys are different despite being so similar. So near yet so far for Sarita, and that was in fact some sort of a similar theme also for Free Hit, where the women's team twice, once in 2005 and then again in 2017, were so near to winning a World Cup title. Yet so far. So it's funny, but the realization, I think I was telling someone that it's much more exciting to write about these characters rather than writing about straightforward victories for athletes. Because for an author, for a writer, this is much more layered, this is much more complex, and that makes it a lot more tough and challenging, but it gives you a lot more satisfaction. So feel free to pick up either or both. I'll be happier if you pick up both.
Absolutely. And we'll put a link in the show notes to the books as well. It's as you were saying, even the Milkha Singh story, for example, is a case of Sonia yet so far, and it still resonates even today.
Yes.
So, Suprita, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again soon. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. Thank you so much.
And that brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us, sending in your questions, your thoughts, your comments. It's always great. As you can tell, so much of our content is defined by the interaction we have with all of you guys. So we love hearing from you. You can get us at One Tip One Hand on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or if you need to email us, send us a note at contact@onetiponehand.com. We will be back, as always, in a week's time. That should be right around the tail end of the first test match between India and Bangladesh that kicks off on November 13th. So stay tuned and we will see you guys soon.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about three friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes three, maybe even five. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my two sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Ha! Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumours, top controversies, fantasy football picks and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Should Ball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the amazing story of something awesome. Once Chuck decided to start a podcast, and so he did. The end. Okay, that was a crappy story. But I've got some really cool stories over at my new show, The Origin of Things. On this podcast, I look at the stories of how brands came into being and sometimes evolved out of quite unexpected circumstances. And to make it really fun, I reveal the name of the brand and sometimes a category only at the very end. The show is 5 to 7 minutes per episode and perfect for trivia junkies and brand nerds, especially those with short attention spans. New episodes out every Wednesday on IVM Podcasts app or website or any podcast app or site that you happen to prefer. End of story, they lived happily ever after.